Well, I just lost a video that I started when the computer rebooted mysteriously. Then I came back and I made these notes, which I was trying to find. Here's what it says. I wanted to talk about nomads, frustration, why I make these videos, French guy, and a retirement fund, divorce, and being alone. Now let's start with why I make these videos. One of the reasons I'm making these videos is because I've been meeting a lot of young people recently in hostels, and I've been telling them that I've learned a lot of things that they didn't teach me in the schools, and that every government I've seen uses the education system to manipulate the young people and create basically the kind of people that the government needs or wants, whether it's the communist system or the capitalist system in so-called free countries. And I don't want the young people to suffer as much as I've suffered. In these last few years, I've really suffered a lot from feeling alone, from not having any children, from not having a relationship with a wife, or a significant other, a girlfriend, a partner, whatever. And so I want to give them more information than they have received so far in their life about what is really important in life. And this was reminded to me again by this guy who just graduated from university in France, and he was thinking about the woofing program and doing some volunteer work on organic farms, and he said it sounded interesting, but he didn't know how that would fit into his the French government's retirement plan, because the French government has some kind of plan, as most governments I think do, where if you work, the government puts money into your retirement fund. So he's in his early 20s and he's already worried about his retirement fund. And this reminds me that one of the teenagers I talked to in England, at about 14 years old, she was also worried about her retirement fund, or her pension fund. And I was thinking that it might be more helpful for young people to start worrying about or thinking about the possibility that they may be divorced in their 30s or 40s, and that they may be alone in their 40s or 50s or 60s. And to me, this is probably it's probably more likely they're going to suffer pain from these kinds of emotional problems rather than suffer pain from financial problems in the future. So anyhow, basically I'd like to see them be prepared a little bit better for what the future could hold for them in terms of preventing emotional suffering. Now back to nomads. I've been reading this book, a couple books actually, about the gypsies, and one thing that both the books say is that over the history of the gypsies moving into Europe, they've been persecuted. They've been many governments have tried to stop them from their nomadic life, for example. And then I started thinking, wait a minute, why don't governments want us to move around? What's the problem with moving around? For example, I like moving around. One of the reasons I like moving around, in fact, is so no particular government can control me. And then I realized, well, maybe that's exactly why they don't want people to move around, because then they can't control us. Sort of like if you capture a young dolphin and you put him in a pool and he can't leave, then you can control him, and you can teach him to jump through hoops and perform, so you can make money from him. And this reminds me of my expression that is, if you can't leave, you're not free. Just like in, I may have said this in another video, but I'll say it again, just in case you haven't seen that one, but just like in Eastern Europe, the East Germans, the Bulgarians, the Romanians, Lithuanians, the Latvians, Estonians, they couldn't leave their countries at any age. This gave the governments an opportunity to have complete control over them, and basically gave the government people the opportunity to have very bad leadership in very bad societies and very bad cultures because they couldn't leave. They didn't have a choice. It wasn't like a free market system where you could just leave. And I was talking to someone about this, and we were talking about how schools are the same way, really. When you're young, you don't have a choice in where you go to school or a choice in if you go to school. So this allows the school administrators to do a bad job, and they can still keep their jobs because there's basically a forced demand for their service. This is a very unnatural, and I would say undemocratic, and even uncapitalistic relationship. Which reminds me that, in general, I think everything would work better if we had all voluntary relationships and we didn't have any forced relationships. That includes forcing children and teenagers to stay with parents or forcing them to go to schools. Alright, I guess that's enough for this video. I won't talk about the frustration in this one. Or, no, I won't. I'll leave that for another video. So I'll stop here.